On the vast open sea, the modern cargo ship Harbinger ploughed through the fog-laden waters. The crew was on edge, feeling an uncanny chill that seemed to emanate from the very depths of the ocean. Captain Theo Marlowe stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the horizon. He had sailed these waters for years, but tonight felt different, as if the sea was whispering secrets long forgotten. Below deck, First Mate Ingrid Larsen and Engineer Samuel Sam Davis were engrossed in routine checks. Ingrid's sharp eyes caught a flicker on the radar, a blip that appeared and vanished like a ghost. "Did you see that, Sam?" she asked, her voice betraying a hint of unease. Sam frowned, double-checking the instruments. "Nothing here, but I'll keep an eye out," he replied, though he couldn't shake off the growing sense of dread. On the deckhand Oliver "Ollie" Green was securing the cargo when he felt a sudden drop in temperature. He pulled his jacket tighter, glancing around nervously. The fog seemed to thicken, swirling around the ship like ghostly tendrils. Bea Carver, the ship's cook, emerged from the galley, her usually cheerful demeanor subdued. "Feels like the dead are watching us," she muttered, her eyes darting to the dark waters below. As night fell, the fog grew denser, cloaking the Harbinger in an eerie silence. The crew gathered in the mess hall, their faces pale and tense. Captain Theo tried to reassure them, but his own unease was palpable. "Stay alert and keep to your stations. We'll get through this," he said, though he couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched. Suddenly a haunting wail pierced the night, echoing across the water. The crew froze, their blood turning to ice. Through the thick fog, an ancient ship emerged, its tattered sails billowing like shrouds of the dead. It was a ghost ship, adrift and forgotten, its hull covered in barnacles and seaweed. The name on its side was barely legible: the Wraith Vessel. The Harbinger's crew was paralyzed with fear as the ghostly ship drew closer. Captain Theo barked orders, trying to snap his crew out of their stupor. "Ingrid, Sam, with me. Ollie, Bea, stay here and keep watch." His voice cut through the eerie silence, but his eyes betrayed his own fear. The spectral vessel loomed ever larger, its presence both mesmerizing and terrifying. Theo, Ingrid, and Sam boarded a lifeboat, rowing cautiously towards the Wraith Vessel. The air grew colder, each breath visible in the frigid air. The ghost ship's deck was covered in a thin layer of frost, and the air felt charged with a malevolent energy. Theo's heart pounded as they neared, the ship's ghostly form becoming more defined with every stroke of the oars. As they climbed aboard, the crew felt an overwhelming sense of despair. The ship's timbers creaked under their weight, as if groaning in agony. Ingrid's flashlight revealed spectral figures moving in and out of the shadows, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Sam whispered, "We need to find out what happened here," his voice barely audible over the creaking wood. They made their way to the captain's quarters, where they found a journal lying on an ancient dust-covered desk. Theo opened it carefully, the pages brittle and yellowed with age. The entries detailed the ship's final voyage, a journey cursed by treacherous waters and a deadly plague that claimed the lives of the entire crew. The final entry was a chilling plea for salvation, written by a hand trembling with fear. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, and the temperature plummeted. Ghostly figures materialized around them, their eyes filled with sorrow and rage. The spectral captain stepped forward, his form flickering like a flame in the wind. "You have trespassed on our eternal voyage," he intoned, his voice echoing with the weight of centuries. The crew stood frozen, their fate intertwined with the cursed souls of the Wraith Vessel. As the spectral captain spoke, a cold wind whipped through the room, extinguishing the small lanterns they carried. Theo, Ingrid, and Sam huddled together, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. The ghostly crew advanced, their eyes glowing with a malevolent light. "Why have you come here?" the spectral captain demanded, his voice echoing with the despair of centuries. Theo stepped forward, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his insides. "We mean no harm. We were drawn to your ship in the fog. We need to understand what happened here." The ghost captain's eyes narrowed, and he seemed to consider Theo's words. "Our fate is sealed by a curse," he finally said. "To break it, you must find the source of our torment." The spectral figures faded into the shadows, leaving the crew alone once more. Ingrid and Sam exchanged worried glances. "Do you think we can trust him?" Sam whispered. Theo shook his head. "We have no choice. If we want to leave this place, we need to break the curse." With a determined look, he led them deeper into the ship, searching for clues that might reveal the source of the haunting. The deeper they ventured, the colder it became. Frost covered the walls and their footsteps echoed in the eerie silence. They passed through the galley, where ghostly figures of long-dead sailors prepared phantom meals. The sight sent chills down their spines, but they pressed on, driven by the need to escape the ship's grasp. In the bowels of the ship, they found a locked chest, covered in strange arcane symbols. Theo knelt down, studying the markings. "This must be it," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Ingrid and Sam stood guard, their eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of the ghostly crew. Theo worked the lock, his fingers numb with cold, and the chest finally creaked open, revealing its contents. Inside the chest, they found a collection of artifacts and documents, each one radiating a dark energy. Theo carefully lifted an ancient rusted key from the chest, its surface covered in strange runes. "This must be part of the curse," he said, his voice echoing in the silence. Ingrid picked up an old map, detailing the ship's final voyage and the cursed waters they had traversed. As they examined the contents, a ghostly wail echoed through the ship. The walls seemed to close in around them, the air thick with malevolence. Sam clutched his flashlight tighter, his eyes darting nervously. "We need to get out of here," he whispered, but Theo shook his head. "Not yet. We need to understand the curse if we want to break it." They pieced together the story of the Wraith Vessel from the documents. The ship had been on a mission to transport a powerful, cursed artifact, but the curse had spread to the crew, dooming them all. The final entry detailed the captain's desperate attempt to seal the curse within the chest, hoping to contain its evil. But the curse had proved too powerful, binding the souls of the crew to the ship for eternity. Determined to break the curse, Theo led them to the ship's hold, where they found a sealed door covered in the same arcane symbols as the chest. Theo used the rusted key to unlock it, the door creaking open to reveal a chamber filled with dark, swirling energy. The artifact lay on a pedestal in the center, pulsing with a malevolent light. As they approached the artifact, the ghostly crew reappeared, their faces twisted with rage and sorrow. The spectral captain stepped forward, his eyes burning with intensity. "You must destroy it," he commanded, his voice filled with both hope and fear. Theo nodded, understanding the weight of their task. With trembling hands, he reached for the artifact, ready to end the curse once and for all. Theo reached for the artifact, feeling its malevolent energy pulse through his fingers. The air around them crackled with dark energy, and the ghostly crew watched in tense silence. As he lifted the artifact, it felt as though the weight of centuries was pressing down on him. Ingrid and Sam stood ready, their faces pale but resolute, determined to end the curse that had bound the souls to the ship for so long. A powerful surge of energy erupted from the artifact, throwing Theo back against the wall. The ship shuddered, and a deafening roar filled the air as the curse fought against its destruction. The ghostly captain cried out, his voice a mix of anguish and hope. "Destroy it now," he commanded. Theo struggled to his feet, gripping the artifact tightly, and with all his strength he hurled it to the ground, shattering it into pieces. As the artifact broke, a brilliant light filled the chamber and the oppressive darkness began to lift. The ghostly crew started to dissolve, their expressions changing from rage and sorrow to relief and peace. The spectral captain approached Theo, a faint smile on his lips. "Thank you," he whispered, his form fading into the light. The ship seemed to exhale a sigh of relief, the timbers creaking as if finally at peace. The crew of the Harbinger watched in awe as the Wraith Vessel began to dissolve into the mist, its ghostly form slowly fading away. The sea grew calm and the oppressive chill that had gripped them lifted. Theo, Ingrid and Sam stood on the deck, watching the ghost ship disappear, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had experienced. Back on the Harbinger, the crew was silent, each lost in their thoughts. Captain Theo gave the order to set sail, his voice steady but filled with the gravity of their encounter. "Let's go home," he said, and the ship began its journey back, leaving the haunted waters behind. As they sailed away, the fog lifted, revealing a clear night sky filled with stars. The curse had been broken, and the souls of the Wraith Vessel were finally at peace.